All right, here we go, ladies and gentlemen. A friendly reminder that grades are closing on October 13th. That is a week from Friday. So if you have any makeup, it is due by October 13th. I still have open extra credit, 10 points on this week's test, which is really 20 percentage points, which is rather obscene. I really need crayons. Just going to make it awkward for everyone so you know I need crayons. Tissue boxes and highlighters. I'm about to cross off highlight. I really need crayons. If you could help a girl out. And then makeup work is due October 13th. Everyone good? We're moving very quick. Yesterday, did we finish our chat-tail slavery hacienda system? And we're on hacienda system. Okay. Dylan, where did we leave off, darling?
Used by Spanish, primarily
conquistadors. Okay. Haciendos, which was just on your quiz you just took. Haciendos are the owners of the land. You do need to know that. You need me to put it back up there? It's kind of more annoying than you think. You need to know that the owners, Haciendos are the owners. Write it down. You can do it. I know we do verbal here. Haciendos are the owners.
How do you spell that?
Hacienda.
Oh.
Hacienda. Haciendos, yeah. All right, here we go. So haciendo is the owner of the land. It's coming. Haciendos are owner of the land. People kept people in debt, so they would have to work the land. So they're purposely manipulating the system. They had crazy high rent that they knew they couldn't pay unless they worked tirelessly, and they couldn't save. That was the big scoring point. All right. They used indigenous people who were trapped by the encomienda system. Remember, the encomienda system and the hacienda system are going to overlap. The racial structure that's created by the encomienda system is going to be used and manipulated to trap those people who are at the bottom into doing free labor. Okay? So, you do need to know that the hacienda and the encomienda system are going to work together. And we're going to come up against these words, but when I come up against them in our lecture today, I'm going to kind of blow through them pretty quick, yes? So we can get to a little bit more of a contextualization of them, not just some random obscured. Once you finish that, I would like you to write Age of Exploration. That is going to be our first heading of the day. Age of Exploration. You've got about 2 seconds to finish this, and then I'm transitioning. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Don't worry, we'll come up against these topics again. All right, so when we talk about the Age of Exploration, you need to understand, and you're going to write this down, the Europeans are trying to get to India. Why do they want to get to India and not China? Why isn't China the destination of choice, Luke?
Because the Ming Dynasty is focused on trade, and so India is
I love that you're using your evidence. Yes. Okay, the Ming Dynasty is not really producing that much stuff. The center of the world becomes India, and that's where everyone's trying to get to. You need to know that the Europeans are trying to get to India because they are tired. Write it down. Of Italians jacking up luxury item prices. What does that mean? What does that mean, Nola?
They're selling them for more than it's worth.
Yes, they're selling it for crazy big prices because why were the Italians the one selling all this stuff to the Europeans? Help me review a little bit. What do you got, Lily?
They had a deal that only they could get the imports from other people.
You've given me no names or no official evidence here. You said they. Who's they?
Like the Venetians.
The Venetians are trading with who?
China.
No, they're not trading with China. Jade?
Mongols?
No, they're not
Was it
trading with the
Arab?
Mongols.
Was it Arab merchants?
Yeah, it's the Muslims. You guys, you have to use your vocab. You got to use your words. Along the Silk Road, the Italians have an agreement to exclusively buy and sell with the Muslims. That's all you have to say. And that is beautifully scored. Yes? You've got to have that evidence in there. All right. So the Italians have the exclusivity of buying and selling from the Muslims. All of those goods are coming through. The rest of Europe hates the Italians because they've been jacking up the prices. So they're like, screw you, Italy. We're going to do it ourselves. Okay. You need to understand a couple new terms that are coming by. You need to understand. You need to know the term of a of a joint stock company. Write it down. These are new terms that we will have till present day. Joint stock company is when small and large investors buy ownership into companies and receive profits. Parentheses, foundation of modern corporations. Okay, so we are going to have a new creation called joint stock companies. So individually, can we all throw together about $10,000? Can you throw it down 10,000? I sure as hell can. I'm a poor teacher. Okay, so however, could we collectively maybe pull together $10,000? Probably. A couple $100 here, a couple $100 here. Maybe we could get up there. That's what a joint stock company is. It's taking small investment and pulling it into one big thing. And when the profits come in, they divide it up amongst. Okay? This is going to transform the European economy completely and utterly. You don't need to know that, but it's coming. Joint stock companies. You have to understand this term because it's going to be relentlessly used. These two joint stock companies that we will use mercilessly. The first one is called the Dutch East India, Dutch West India Company. Write it down, or East India Company. It doesn't matter, either or. The Dutch East India Trade Company. So we have the Dutch, and you need to write parentheses VOC. That is its abbreviation. See? You can literally say it. VOC. EOC. Then we have the British East India Trade Company. Both of these are the best example of joint stock companies that we will discuss until 1947. So are we going to be with these guys for a while? Yes. Okay. The British East India Trade Company is known as the EOC. EOC. You need to know these abbreviations, people. By the way, you've seen East India Trade Company. Have you ever seen Pirates of the Caribbean, the first one? Jack Sparrow is constantly playing with an EOC gold coin. That's what he has. That's what he steals, and that's what turns him into a ghost. Spoiler alert. Okay? That's what they're stealing. They're going around. The curse is from the reason why the handsome British general dude is trying to capture them is because they're stealing money from the EOC. That's why. That's why the British hate the pirates, because they're stealing money from the British East India Trade Company. All right, here we go. So you're going to write number 1, and I'll explain why. Number 1, and write Portugal. Okay, Portugal is the first country to rise during the Age of Exploration. So they're the first ones. And the reason why they're the first one to rise is because of Prince Henry Navigation School. Write it down. You cannot live without this. It is one of the most beautiful pieces of evidence that you can use it to justify anything you want. Okay, Prince Henry of Portugal is going to start the world's first navigation school. Every explorer I tell you about will go through Prince Henry's Navigation School. So every single one, Columbus, Diaz, Magellan, Cabot, all of them are going through it. You need to know that, okay, Bartholomew Diaz is the first Portuguese. This is all Portugal, by the way. So under the Navigation School, you need to write the name Bartholomew Diaz. Okay, so let me tell you a little bit more about the navigation school. You don't need to write down, but I just want you to hear. So the navigation school is going to pull different people from different backgrounds. It's not just ship captains. It's ship captains, ship builders, ship technology people, math guys, science guys, and they're all putting into a room, and they're all working together to drastically improve technology in order to make it happen. And is it successful? It's like a think tank here in 2023. We put the smartest people in a room trying to solve a problem, and they come out with solutions. That's what they've done with the Age of Exploration. All of these people have come together with shipbuilders and iron workers and all of these incredible different skills. They put them in a room, and they've created these incredible new changes of technology, starting with Bartholomew Diaz. Okay, you need to know under Bartholomew Diaz, he is going to start what we call trade post empires. That is a second big term that you just have to get to know. So we are going to have joint stock companies, and now we're going to have trade post empires. Okay, trade post empire is when a European country, write it down, it's not just the Portuguese, they're just the first. It's when your European countries claim ports of other territories as theirs and charge tariffs. What are tariffs, Rinkus? Taxes, yeah. So, if you're a Portuguese ship, do you have to pay the tax? No. It's your country port. No. Hell no. If you're a foreigner, do you have to pay the tax? Hell yeah, you do. Okay. So, put a big star. Trading post empires is not colonialism. Write it down. It is not colonialism, aka no control of government. So, are the Europeans, like Bartholomew Diaz, taking over the territory and making it a colony? No, they're just claiming the port, okay? So, what Bartholomew Diaz does is why he is famous. So, he leaves Portugal and sails around the coast of Africa. As he crashes into the coast of Africa, which he's going to have to do because ships back then had to go into port very often to get fresh water, fresh food, and stuff like that. Quite unlike our sailing ships, they're floating in the water some of the time because there's not enough wind. So as they pull into port, what does he do? Puts his flag down and says, mine. Okay? And then goes to the next port and claims it mine. This is what we call for trading post empires. Okay? Well, his big claim to fame is he sails around the Cape of Good Hope. Now, the Cape of Good Hope is one of the most dangerous places in the world to sail. It's one of the most dangerous places in the world to sail because from the southern ice caps, all of that wind, which has really nothing to slow it down, is just blowing straight up into the coast of Africa. Down here is some of the rockiest shores in the world. It has more shipwrecks than any other place in the world. It also is the shark capital of the world, fun fact. So if you do go in the water, you're definitely going to be eaten alive. Okay? And the wind is blowing incredibly hard into the tip of Africa while you're trying to sail around the tip of Africa. And there's also only a very narrow channel. So if you slip out of the channel, what's going to happen to you? You're going to crash your ship and then die. Okay? So it is very, very dangerous. It's so dangerous they call it the Cape of... Because you hope you make it through. Because you're probably going to die. People still crash here, people. Modern ships still crash here. Okay? Not all the time. It's not that common, obviously, with the modern GPS. And obviously, they extended the channel. They made it significantly wider and stuff like that. But it is still very dangerous. And especially in South Africa, there's always news that, vehicle ships, idiots like you and I who have boats and stuff, crash down there all the time. Because the wind is so harsh, the waves are so harsh, and everything is slamming you into the rocks. So... he's the first one to get around it, which means that people can sail around it. So the next person, named Vasco da Gama, who's also Portuguese, by the way, is going to be the first one to sail around the Cape of Good Hope and make it all the way to India, which is the big claim to fame. Vasco da Gama is the first European to sail into the Indian Ocean basin and make it all the way to India. It is really important that you understand. Sailing that ship, paying the crew, feeding the crew, all the things that were required cost $10,000 to get that ship all the way to India and back. When they got to India, they were completely shocked. Okay, India has been doing trading for thousands of years at this point, right, in the Indian Ocean basin. So what they've created a system. So all the ports have tons and tons of the items there. So all you have to do is pull up your boat, and very quickly they can fill it so you can leave so we can get the next boat in, yes? It's very, very profitable. They know how to turn the boats. So when the Europeans show up, they're just seeing piles and piles of cinnamon, nutmeg, spices, all of these things that they have never seen, only in small portions because they're so expensive in Europe, and they're just sitting next to boats. They fill their boats to the absolute top of the keel. They almost sink their own ship because they have too much shit in it. That's how filled they send it. Then they send it back. It almost takes them a month and a half longer to get home because their boat is moving so slowly because there's so much stuff in the ship. Once they get back, they unload their ship. They have made 150 times the profit in profit what it costs to send the ship there in the first place. So what does every European nation want to do the moment that happens? They all want to go to India. And that's the big difference about Vasco da Gama. Once Vasco da Gama gets there and shows how profitable it can be, what does every European nation want to do? They want to go. And that's exactly what's happening. All right, here we go. So you need to know that Portugal, just look, all of these ports, you can see the little ports that they control. These are all the port territories they control. Okay, so Portugal is doing pretty well. They also have Brazil. Keep in mind, Brazil is an oddity. Remember, it's the only state, it's the only part over here. Every place has tariffs and stuff like that. Now, who is the biggest rival of Portugal? Even still to this day, they hate each other. Thomas? Spain. Spain and Portugal absolutely hate each other. Mostly because they're on the same peninsula. Like, this is Portugal and this is Spain. They're right next to each other, so it makes sense they hate each other more than anything. Okay? So, Spain is going to, Portugal rises first, and every time you rise, you have to fall. So Portugal is going to rise first because of Prince Henry's navigation school. It is going to decline first as well. Who do you think is going to start rising now? Spain. So number 2 is going to be Spain. That is your second Age of Exploration empire. Spain is going to be number 2. Now, you need to write down that Spain hates Portugal. Portugal hates Spain. That's going to have impacts on 2 major things. Okay, keep in mind, the Portuguese are the ones who opened up the Age of Exploration. They have all these ports. And the Portuguese hate the Spanish. So do you think the Spanish pay higher tariffs or lower tariffs? Higher tariffs. So is going along and going into all this Portuguese territory effective or ineffective? Ineffective. So a guy named Christopher Columbus goes to Spain and say, hey, you know how you hate the Portuguese? And the Spanish are like, yeah, we freaking hate them. And they're like, yes. So, screw the Portuguese. How about we go west to go east? So the whole reason why Christopher Columbus sails towards the Americas, not knowing the Americas was there, is because the Spanish hate the Portuguese so much. And they didn't want to pay the tariffs, so write it down. So, Columbus sails west to go east to avoid Portuguese tariffs. Because the last thing you want to do, if you really hate someone, do you want to help them benefit in any way? Do you want to pay anything for them? No, hell no. So the Spanish were like, screw you, Portuguese, we're going to go our own way. And of course, he does find something, and what does he find? The Americas. He finds specifically Hispaniola, write it down. He finds Hispaniola. Hispaniola is what we call Haiti and Dominican Republic today. So he crashes into this, okay? He crashes into this, and he bumps around in the islands for a little bit, okay? He does 3 total trips. You should know that Ferdinand and Isabel, write it down, are the Spanish kings that send them. In what year? 1492. Okay, Ferdinand and Isabel are going to send him in 1492. Okay, with that being said, he's considered a failure in his lifetime. Why is he a failure, Stella?
Because he didn't find, like, the other route to India.
Yeah, he didn't find the actual route to India. Because remember, when I told you, when Vasco da Gama showed up in India, what was already at the ports ready to go? All the goods, all the spices, all the things they wanted. Were the Native Americans ready to go with all their goods for a bunch of white people to show up on a boat? Hell no. So the Spanish were like, what the hell is this shit? For the next 30 years, no one really gave a shit about the Americas. It was kind of like, oh, okay. So they send him 2 more times. He does 3 total trips. And then he goes and gets drunk and dies alone in shame. No one cares about Christopher Columbus. He dies in obscurity. Okay? He comes back later in the 1800s because Italian Americans wanted to make him famous because he's an Italian who sails for Spain. We'll get to the reason why later. But no one really cares about him. Okay? Now, eventually, are the Spanish going to get very excited about this? Yes. But it's like 30 or 40 years till they actually start caring about it because they're very disappointed because they hate the Portuguese so much and it looks like the Portuguese are winning. That's why they're not thrilled. Okay. The next Spanish explorer is going to be Magellan. So about 40 years after Christopher Columbus, they're going to send Magellan. So they're like, well, shit, we have all this land. Why don't we go figure out what it is? So Ferdinand Magellan is the first to circumnavigate the globe. And every time he hits something, what does he do? Plants a flag, which is why pretty much all of South America are Spanish-speaking countries. Because Magellan is just, every time he touches land, he smacks a flag into it. How many flags do you think he carried with him? I don't know. That's a good question. That's a good question. Anyway, so he goes and wanders around. It's a sham. He dies. I don't understand why he gets credit, but here we are. Okay. Who does the Spanish hate more than anyone? Portuguese. So, Spain and Portuguese hate each other. Now, this is something I love because I'm a petty person. Okay. The Spanish and the Portuguese hate each other. We know that the Portuguese rise and the Portuguese are declining while the Spanish are rising. Now, what is going, the Americas held what claim to fame? They had the largest deposits of what in the world? Gold. So the Spanish, who are now in control of the Americas, now control all the gold pretty much in the world. We have the largest deposits here. So with that being said, the Portuguese are in decline, the Spanish are rising, and the Portuguese are petty as hell. So what they do is they realize the Portuguese can't conquer these ships. Is it easy or hard to conquer a ship at sea? It's incredibly hard. You got to stop the ship, then you got to climb on the ship, and then you got to kill everyone on the ship to take the ship. It's very hard to do. Is it harder or easier to sink a ship?
Easier.
It's super easy. So, because the Portuguese are petty and they hate the Spanish, guess what the Portuguese do? These ships are filled with gold. And the Portuguese hate the Spanish so much. They're not even trying to steal the gold. They just want to make sure that the Spanish don't get it. So what the Portuguese do is they're just sitting off of the coast of the Iberian Peninsula and sitting off in the Caribbean Sea. And what are they doing? They are literally just shooting cannons to sink ships. They're not trying to intercept them. They're not trying to steal them. They are literally sinking ships to screw over the Spanish economy. You gotta love it. You'll love to see it. Problem is, it becomes a big, big problem because there's sailors on those ships, and those are Catholics. Okay, so this is when the Treaty of Tordesillas comes into place. Okay, so write down Treaty of Tordesillas. Because the Spanish and Portuguese hate each other. Can you at least appreciate that? That's why every once in a while, like a couple years ago, I think like 4 years ago, someone found a Spanish galleon off the coast of some Caribbean island, and it was worth like $300 million. If you find it and it's in the sea, like in a body of water, it's yours. It is literally yours. It's finders keepers if it's a sunken ship. So I don't know if you're into it, but you can find some Spanish galleons out there. Anyway, with that being said, the Treaty of Tordesillas is between Spain and Portugal, two Catholic countries. You need to understand it because this is just after the 30 Years' War. The 30 Years' War is called by what fracture in the church? Thomas? Protestant Reformation. So because the Protestant Reformation has happened, the Catholic Church has lost a ton of people. Okay? So the Pope is concerned that two Catholic nations killing each other is going to kill more Catholics. So he divides the world. The Pope, write it down. The Pope divides the world into two sides. And you need to know this language. Old World, which is Afro-Eurasia, and New World, which is the Americas. Oh, you're so annoying. So, the Treaty of Tordesillas divides the world into New World and Old World. You need to know that the Portuguese get the Old World. The Portuguese get the Old World because they were the first ones to really start conquering things, right? They have ports all over here, all of these ports, so it makes sense that they would get the Old World. The Spanish control pretty much everything except this green spot over here. So it makes sense that they would get the New World. Off the cuff, who looked like they got the better deal? Spain or Portugal? Portugal. Portugal was like, yeah, we won. And then who actually is benefiting the most? Spain's going to win. Okay, so the Treaty of Tordesillas is because it's post-Protestant Reformation. We can't have two Catholic nations killing each other, so the Pope gets involved, creates Treaty of Tordesillas. You do need to know that Brazil goes to Portugal because they divide it along a fat man sat on a longitude line. Okay, latitude goes horizontal.
What was Old World?
What's what? Old World is Afro-Eurasia. Africa, Europe, Asia. And New World is Americas. Thomas.
Portuguese actually must have heard of that.
Huh?
Did they keep going to the New World? Or
Yeah, they just went to Brazil. They just went to Brazil because they were making tons of money in Brazil off of sugarcane production. And you should write down, next to Brazil, write sugarcane. That's why Brazil is the only country on the Western Hemisphere that speaks Portuguese. They're the only ones because they're the only ones the Treaty of Tordesillas allowed, and it's because they divided it on a longitude line. All right. Okay, you're conquistador. So now we are in Spain. Yes, we're still in Spain. You need to know that the Spanish are going to send 2 conquistadors. What do you think conquistadors do? They conquer. That's what it means in Spanish, is conquer. Okay, the first one is a guy named Hernan Cortez. He is like one of the biggest, crappiest people in the history of the world. He's a disgusting human being. Hernan Cortez is going to capture the Aztecs. We've read some of his words. Okay, we read a primary source about the description of the Aztec markets. That was him. Okay, he is going to lead to the defeat of the Aztecs. Then you have a guy named Pizarro. Pizarro is going to conquer the Incans. Now, I'm not that upset if you don't know, but Ren would be upset. For the Aztecs, you should know the final ruler is Montezuma II, but I don't care if you know. Okay, the Aztecs, going back to the Aztecs, you need to know Hernan Cortez and Pizarro. Cortez is going to defeat the Aztecs. If you go to Mexico, just a fun little fact, they tell you don't drink the water, because if you drink it, you're going to get super, super sick, because they have bacteria in their water that we don't have in the United States, and it's just going to give you like terrible diarrhea, and you'll be puking for like a good solid week, and it's horrible. Guess what they call it? Montezuma's revenge. He's the last of the Aztec ruler. You're a white person who's come to Mexico, can't drink the water. It's called Montezuma's revenge. That's why they call it that. All right. Quick little fun fact about Pizarro and the conquering the Incans. Pizarro was just kind of wandering around in the jungle, and they came across a perfectly designed what? No, not an aqueduct. A roadway. What are the Incans famous for? Roadways. So, what does Pizarro do when he finds the road? That's how the Incans were discovered. Is they were just wandering around in the woods, and they find a road, and then they just follow the road, and they just start sacking every city that they take. And that's how the Incans fall. All right, you need to know the term Columbian Exchange. I'm not going to beat this one to hell, because I think we did a really great job on Friday with our map/diagrams talking about Columbian Exchange. You just need to know that the New World and the Old World are now exchanging goods, ideas, and diseases. Okay? Which side benefits the most? New World or Old World? Old World benefits the most. Population will increase. Okay? Old World benefits the most. Which one is the most damaged? New World is the most damaged. What do you got, Charlie?
So it's between Portuguese and Spanish?
No. It's just like Old World as in Afro-Eurasia and New World. So,
between the Portuguese and Spanish?
no, it's just like opens in general. Because the Spanish are going to be the first ones that are really going to spend a lot of time over there. So the Spanish are really the first ones to open it, right? Columbus sailing for Spain and stuff like that. But the Columbian Exchange is just a generic term that just talks about the interconnection between the Old World and the New World. So all these goods coming through. Like, I mean, it's a cute little diagram, right? Okay, avocados going over, vanilla hadn't been tasted, tomatoes, potatoes, okay? Imagine a world without pineapples. Damn, I love pineapples, especially on my pizza. You can judge. I don't care. My self-esteem is perfectly high enough. Hawaiian pizza is my absolute favorite all time. Coming over here, lots of diseases, honeybees. We've talked about that. Coffee beans, all that stuff going over. Okay, as you can see from the chart, how's it going to go for the natives? Really, really badly for the natives. However, there are a couple good things that will come through that do benefit the natives in small, slight degrees, but overall, this is better for Europeans than it is for Americans. Okay? All right, Columbian Exchange, animals. All right, skip a space, center it. Okay, colonial administration. So, what is the name of the first country to rise into power in the age of exploration? What's the first one to crash? What's the second one to rise? Spain. We haven't come to the decline of Spain. Who's going to be the third to rise? England. The British are coming. Okay, the British are coming. The British are coming. So the British are going to be thrown over in 1588. Remember, we talked about the Spanish Armada already? Yeah, that's the official turning of the tides. Here we go. Huh? Yes, it was a play on the American Revolution, and yes. Here we go. Colonial administration. You need to know the Spanish. We're still in the Spanish here. We're in the age of the Spanish. They use viceroys. And viceroys are like little kings. They are the king's representative here in the Americas, and they're the ones who run everything. We're more familiar with the British setup, who are the viceroy equivalent of the British. No, we don't have any dukes in America.
Oh, I thought we were talking about Britain.
Well, in Britain, they have British things, but what do they do in the Americas?
State representatives.
Yeah, what do they call them? Oh, God, no. Governors, people. Governors.
Same thing.
Hello, governor. Yes, have you ever heard that? Yeah, it's because the governors were the most powerful people. Okay, guys. Also, Pirates of the Caribbean reference. In the Pirates of the Caribbean, the gorgeous chick's dad is governor. So he's the king's representative in Jamaica or wherever they were. All right. All right, so you do need to know that the Spanish are going to set up missionaries. Spanish are going to set up missionaries, ladies and gentlemen, with the Jesuits. Remember, Jesuits are all about converting people and all about education. They're going to set up missionaries because they're trying to do forced conversion. Yes, you'll love to see it. Here you go. Why are they doing forced conversion? What just major event happened within the last 100 years in Europe that they're like, oh shit, we got to get more Catholics? What is it, Lily? The Protestant Reformation just crashed the Catholic numbers, and the Spanish are very good Catholics. So what do they want to increase? Catholic numbers. So what are they going to do? They're going to force all these natives to embrace Catholicism, and that's what the missionary work is. Okay? So they are forcing all these indigenous to embrace Catholicism to bump up the numbers. They do good. That wasn't English. They do two good things. Write it down. The first thing is that they bring education to the Americas. They are going to teach them how to read and write. The second good thing that these missionary works are going to do is that they are going to bring medication. Keep in mind, though, if you want to get access to the school or if your baby's dying and you don't want it to die, what do you have to do? Yeah. Pros, cons, I guess. All right, here we go. So, they're going to set up missionaries. They're going to increase. What is the largest sect of Christianity? Catholicism. And who really did that? The Spanish. The Spanish are the reason why. Okay? Because they are going to force all these people to convert. Okay? All right. So, you need to know that the Spanish, put a big star, the Spanish are here working in mines. They're working in mines. Now, are they doing the heavy lifting? No, they're bossing around the slaves and the indigenous and enslaved labor. They're just telling them what to do. They're in the mines. They're looking for gold and silver. Those are the two major metals that are coming out of Spanish territories. Okay? Now, if you were coming over here to go work in a mine and you were going to be working, you're here on a business trip, would you bring your families or would you leave them at home? You leave them at home. Put a big star. The Spanish are not bringing their wives because they are here to work. They're not bringing their wives. They're not coming here to start a new life. That whole American ideal, the American dream, that's not what the Spanish are here for. They're here for, let's make our money and get the hell out. So that's why they don't bring their wives. On the other side of that, are they sitting at home reading their Bibles at night? No, they are not. So who are they mixing with? Yeah, they're making lots and 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 lots of babies. You don't need to write that down. That would be a lot of lots. Okay? You need to write down, though, that they are mixing with indigenous and creating mixed babies because they are not sitting around, because they did not bring their wives. So, all of a sudden now, they have to create a social structure that regulates all this mixing. And oh my God, what is it called? The encomienda system. Write it down. So, because the Spanish men are coming over here to work, they are not bringing their wives. They're mixing with the locals, and all of a sudden we got a lot of mixed babies running around. So we have to come up with a system to keep white people on top. We can't have everyone mixed. We got to keep white people on top, so they create the encomienda system to kind of start regulating this. Do the British have a social structure based on race? No. No, they don't. Why? The British bring their wives. They're coming over here. So you are absolutely not mixing with the locals. Because you're not mixing with the locals, there's no racial social structure. You just have white people and non-black, non-white people, and that's how we'll get to them. All right. So with that being said, there is a colonial system. We've already talked about this stuff, okay? They have it really broken down into different sects. That is how complicated it gets because these men didn't bring their wives, okay? And it becomes an incredibly complicated society, okay? So much so that we have things called casa paintings. Write it down. It's a lovely piece of evidence for later. The casa paintings show the class system, and what they do is that you would look at the casa paintings and then figure out what a person is. Have you ever seen in the 1930s, 40s, when the Nazis were holding up different shades of white to figure out what kind of white you are and figuring out your tiering system? Same thing. Also, the same thing that's happening in South Africa with their social structure is that they're literally coloring in people by paintings. Like, oh, you look like this. You must be a mulatto. And going like that. So it's used to support the system. Okay? And there's tons of paintings of all these mixed people life. So this is a Spanish dude. I'm pointing at my computer. That's great. Spanish dude, American Indian, wife, mixed babies. Okay? So, is it completely stigmatized? Is it ideal? No, but is it super horrible? No. Is it great for purebred Native Americans? No. Is it great for any of them? No, because there's still racial stigma inside of it, but in Spain, it's more accepted. It's not as accepted as the French. The French are like, wee, let's do it. But the Spanish are a little bit more, okay? Spanish and black, very uncommon, by the way, but did happen, as you can see. Okay, black, native, all that stuff. All right, here we go. Triangular trade is your next heading. Okay. You are going to write this down. Okay, the first thing that's going to happen is guns and rum are going to leave leave Europe. Guns and rum leave Europe and head to Africa. Guns and rum leave Europe and head to Africa. Africans, write it down. Africans buy guns and rum in exchange for slaves. Africans buy guns and rum with slaves. Next, you're going to write Middle Passage. Middle Passage is between Africa and the Americas, where slaves are on the ship. The Middle Passage is when slaves are on the ship between Africa and the Americas. Okay. Next thing is in the Americas. In the Americas, they buy the slaves. Write it down. In the Americas, they buy the slaves with cash crops like cotton, tobacco, sugar, / molasses. Okay? And then, where does the ship go? Okay, so then next, the ship goes to Europe. and sells the cash crops for guns and rum. And the whole process starts again. That's the whole process. That's triangular trade. So, Europeans, it's mostly done by the Portuguese. The Portuguese are the ones really fostering most of this, and the Dutch. Okay, they are leaving Europe with guns and rum. They go to Africa and they sell the guns and rum in exchange for slaves. They bring the slaves to the Americas. The Americans buy the slaves using cash crops. Those cash crops go to Europe, and that is where they are processed. Okay. All right. We already know chattel slavery is what we have here. I just want you to write it down. Is the American type of slavery is chattel slavery. Okay. All right, and you need to know about 11 million Africans are forced to migrate to the Americas. Write it down. In the African slave trade to the Americas and transatlantic. Luke, get it done, dude. You're literally 4 feet in front of me. I don't know if you know, but I can see you. Yes? Makes a lot of sense. Write it down. 11 million Africans forced into this. Okay? You need to put a big star. Most of them are going to Brazil. What crop are they growing in Brazil, Harding? Mr. Harding, what crop are they growing in Brazil? It's one of the major crops we just talked about. Who can help them out? What's the major crop, Callie? Sugar. You need to know what is the most dangerous crop to harvest? Sugar. What country is the largest purchaser of slaves? Brazil. An American, a slave that is purchased by Brazil is only going to survive about 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks. That's how fast they die because the work is unbearable and they don't give a shit. So they are just going to kill these slaves and replace them with the next ship. They don't care. You're only going to last 3 to 4 weeks. You're going to be killed as a slave in Brazil. In America, if you get put on a southern cotton plantation in the Americas, you are going to live for 6 to 18 years. Do you see a difference?
Why is it so dangerous?
Because, by the way, take out your boards. Here we go. How much time do we have? Oh, okay, never mind then. The sugar is really hard. So sugar grows in like these reeds. It kind of looks like bamboo-ish to a degree, really small. And what you have to do is cut it down. And it's hard to cut down. It's annoying. And then the real process is you have to squeeze the bamboo between these two pressure plates. And everything has to be done by hand, not machine. So it is very labor intensive. And it gets this like whitish water. Anyone here ever had sugar cane? It's sweet, but it's not like sugar bowl sweet. So then you have to get all the water out, which is incredibly intensive, and then you have to dry it. You lay it out in the sun, and then you have to scoop it up. It's very labor intensive. Huh?
They still do it by hand today.
No. Why would they do this by hand? We have machines.
Wait, Miss Bennett, when the Portugal was shooting down the Spanish ships,